Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tom Worth Jr. and I think I can start to make some sense out of what Trump is trying to accomplish with the Greenland saber rattling and threats. And as usual, it is all about his good buddy Vladimir Putin. In the beginning of all this, a lot of people were wondering, how could he do this? Wouldn't this piss off Vladdy? And yeah, it would if it were legitimately the United States doing this for security concerns about Russia and or China. Now we know that it is not, in fact, about that. It is the grand plan, the longer term strategic wedge dividing that only Vladimir Putin and Stephen Miller are so great at. That's what this is about, I'm thinking. And it kind of makes sense when you look at it through that lens. Here's why. The United States we've already discussed this. They already have free reign over Greenland militarily for defense purposes. They have a base there. They can build more. They can make this one bigger. They can do anything they want militarily in Greenland. That's why it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes your head hurt to contemplate what even a military invasion or takeover would mean, because we already have it from that perspective. So what are you taking over? You already have it. It would be like Trump rolling into Fort Bliss down here in Texas and saying, I'm taking you over. You already have it. There's nothing to take over. That doesn't mean Trump wouldn't do it. He does things like that. He starts fights when there aren't fights to be had. But that's not what this is about. Russia's navy is all bottled in, right? Ukraine took care of that in the Black Sea. And Russia was all about seizing Crimea almost 12 years ago because they wanted a deep sea port. They wanted access for their Black Sea fleet. And that's kind of worthless now with the drone warfare that is dominating that conflict, to the extent where they don't even really have a Black Sea fleet anymore. But they do have access to the North Sea, some limited access. And they need that for their shadow fleet, for oil exports, and they need that. And they're pretty bottled up by NATO. And they can't be any threat to Greenland whatsoever. You've got all the Baltic countries, you've got the Nordic countries, you get by them, you've got the UK itself. The British Navy may have something to say to a Russian fleet on its way over to Greenland. It's not a threat. They pose no threat. The Russians pose no threat, their Navy does, to Greenland. So what is this about? It's about driving a wedge. You keep hearing about Denmark being one of our most staunch allies. They're there for everything. They lost troops with us in Afghanistan. They've always been there. They're such a great ally of ours. Are they still a great ally of ours as a result of this? No matter what happens, they're not. And in that sense, Putin has already won without a shot being fired. Yes, we have the special relationship with the UK. But this alliance with Denmark, Denmark's not a match for us, right? Economically, militarily, there's no threat. There's no threat there. All they do is help us. They don't have to help us to the extent that they always have, but they always do, because there's just something there between us. And now Vladimir Putin, through his asset, Donald Trump, has poisoned that relationship. It will never be the same again. At least not in Donald Trump's lifetime. Maybe some decades down the road, if things somewhat get back to normal. I don't know if that's even possible. Maybe things could. But from where we sit now, it's not possible. So that's the main reason behind Donald Trump's attempted thrusts into Greenland. It's not about security. We all knew that from the start, but we were trying to make sense of why he would be doing this when it's endangering NATO. Now, Go back to Trump's first term when he was trying to undermine NATO, and then he was summarily kicked out of office as a result of the November 2020 election. And a year and 3 months later, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine wholesale. And the response of Ukraine and of NATO was just one of total preparedness, because Joe Biden didn't do much right. But one thing he did get right was just trumpet all of the intelligence that the U.S. had about all of the Russian buildups all over on the borders of Ukraine. So he shared that far and wide with all of the allies, with Ukraine, with NATO. It allowed everyone to be prepared for what Russia was about to do, or at least as prepared as they could be. And a lot of people were thinking, well, that happened because of Biden's weakness, right? What didn't happen because of Biden's weakness? Biden's sharing of intelligence is what allowed Ukraine to still be there today as its own independent country, almost 4 years later. It's going to be 4 years next month. So because of, like I said, Biden didn't get a lot right, certainly economically, but he did get that right. That was a masterstroke, I think. It's the kind of thing that someone with a lot of foreign policy experience would do, a lot of experience in the way the world works would do, which Biden had. Trump does not have it. Stephen Miller does not have it. They're not interested in it. They're only interested in sabotaging our existing alliances and relationships. And that's what they're doing. So it has nothing to do with Greenland's resources. It would be decades before any of those would be available to us, if ever. It's nothing to do with security concerns. There are none. This has everything to do with Vladimir Putin, once again, outsmarting many people, catching people off guard with his suggestion to Trump that he do this in order to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Denmark, the U.S. and NATO. And it's working, unfortunately, as with many of the things Putin orders. He doesn't have the military prowess. He has no economy to speak of, but he does have the KGB mindset. He was really good at that. He parlayed that into getting elected the president of Russia and turning that into a lifetime dictatorship. And that's what we're looking at now. That's all you need to know. That's as far as this goes. That's why even if Greenland did say, okay, we'll be part of the United States, or even if Denmark said, okay, let's let the Greenlanders decide and we'll decide on a price and the price can go all to the Greenlanders, of course that's never going to happen. But even if they did that, it's just like with any power-hungry dictator, he's just going to ask for more. He's going to be shocked because even Trump doesn't think this is going to work, but he's going to keep pushing harder and harder and harder because he knows no one can hit back except for China, and China's not a part of this equation. No one can push back in a way that hurts him. So he will continue to push, and that's all he needs to do. It's going to continue to poison the relationship, continue to stress NATO, and maybe ultimately result in the breakup of NATO. I don't know. I hope not. But that's what we're looking at right now on the eve of Davos in Switzerland this week. Okay, if you give this a like, give it a subscribe. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of analysis going on around this. I look at Peter Zion a lot. I look at Chris Cillizza for the political implications. I'm not as interested in the domestic politics of this. I am interested in the international relations of this, the resources, that kind of thing. And I think Peter Zion is really great at that. So give him a look as well if you're not already watching his channel. That's it for now, and we'll talk later.